Okay, hello and welcome back. We are almost done with the game. Oh my goodness. Um, Last stream we finished the ambassador route. We played through the finale and that took about 2 hours, so this is probably going to take about 2 hours as well. Just to give people an idea. The previous night chapter, my mic was too low, so the audio, well, actually the first, when I live streamed it, my headphones weren't properly plugged in, so there was no audio from me at all. When I re-recorded it, my mic was so low that you could barely hear me. You'd have to turn up the volume really high. So I was finally able to re-record it on Sunday, and it should be uploaded by now. And the Nomad Chapter 7 and Ambassador Finale will be uploaded this Saturday and then next week. So slightly behind in terms of uploading, but they will be available. And a quick announcement from the developers of Arcade Spirits and Arcade Spirits The New Challengers, both of which I have done live streams for. Their playlists are available on my YouTube channel. The company that developed those two games has announced their newest game, what they called their Game 3 project. It's called Penny Larceny Super Gig Economy Supervillain. There we go. I've been helping with the bug testing for that. So it's great, and once the demo is available, I will live stream playing through that. I also helped test Arcade Spirits The New Challengers, and I tried to leave some of it as a surprise for me. So I didn't play through everything when I was bug testing. I was trusting the other testers to test the parts that I wasn't testing. So I've been really impressed with all the games that the developers for Fiction Factory Games have done. So if you enjoyed if you want to, basically, the way I put it when I was posting links to the post on Steam, which, by the way, please go wishlist it, because it's completely self-published. I basically said, if you want to be gay, do crimes, then this is the game for you, because that's basically what you're doing. You're playing basically a villain. And it's not like, you're not like going hardcore into the villainy type thing. It's more, you get up to shenanigans. So there's that. So anyway, back to Errant Kingdom. With the night, they attended they're basically directed to attend a ball in Adoran, a winter ball, and they met up with some noble triplets who said they had information for you, so they sent you on side quests. And basically you had to do favors for them in order to get the information, and that information is that there is a weapon in the castle that will, in the right hands, could basically save the kingdom. And so now you need to figure out, how in the world do I get this weapon and use it, basically. So we pick up with the knight having spent the night with Maja and Errant, because that's who they romanced, and their pronouns are they them. So now we're picking up with them the following morning. So let's get into it. The finale. When I wake up in the morning, I have a few blissful moments of peace before it's swallowed by a dark and inescapable sense of dread. Whatever rest I was able to get last night seems to drain instantly. The path ahead is too murky to know exactly what I'm going to face, but I know it isn't going to be easy. The temptation to stay in Alduran, to shirk my responsibilities, and to stay in the perceived safety of the castle. I pack up my things with efficiency, Maddox insisting to take my trunk to the caravan himself. Remember, we caught Maddox and Cedric having a little smooch time in a cupboard. The castle is bustling as everyone prepares for the journey back to Novus. Servants and squires do the heavy lifting, and the nobles collect in small gaggles to pass on the last crumbs of gossip. There's a prickle on the back of my neck, and I turn to see the triplets watching me from a window in their carriage. It isn't malicious. If anything, it's bordering on kind, and I swear I see Callisto's mouth tick up in the smallest of smiles. I approach the duchesses to bid my farewells and to thank them. Their faces brighten as I draw near, and they smile happily. I hope I was able to meet your expectation, your graces. They giggle, a pleasant chirpy sound. Oh, I'd say you handily exceeded those. Watching you was quite entertaining, to be sure. Oh, so they were watching me. They weren't just watching Eric. I can feel my face turn red hot. Don't forget about us up here, Ehab. Adurin will always be there for our friends. The meaning behind their words doesn't miss me. I bow low and bid my farewell before turning towards the caravan. I mull over their words. I've learned too much in my time in Novus to chalk things up to mere coincidence, and to think the duchesses didn't have an idea of what went on within the walls of their castle is foolish. I mean, Queen Adora and King Thaddeus made it clear that they are aware of what's going on in the castle at Novus, so who's to say that the duchesses aren't aware either? Something has been simmering, and now it's about to come to a boil. Clearly, I'm not the only one who can feel it. Maddox materializes next to me, as he does, and ushers me into the proper coach alongside Livia, Lucian, and Masha. That's who the ambassador traveled home with. Well, not home, back to Novus. I'll be riding horseback with the other squires, so I won't be far behind. The young man has hardly left my orbit since this morning. I can only imagine what he went through last night, losing sight of me only to discover I'd nearly died. As far as my coach companions, I fear I don't have a choice. They trust no one but themselves. I mean, that's fair. I was never a big fan of long journeys, and this one seems more fraught than any before, including my initial trip from Bithris. My anxiety increases as the distance to Novus grows shorter. Not only have I rejected the Queen and King, but I've essentially told an all-powerful, omnipotent being to piss off. Returning to Novus is like throwing myself into a feral lion's den. Not fun. Obviously, I can't just waltz right back into the castle. That only leads to being smited. I can feel myself stare off into the distance as I imagine a large lightning bolt striking me and only leaving behind a scorched floor and a small pile of ash. I have seen lightning hitting trees. That's amazing. I can only imagine what they'll do to a human being. Maybe I should stay away from the metal armor for the time being. I don't know why I don't remember that. Maybe because you just kind of skim over stuff after you've played through it a few times. I feel a hard thud against my shoulder and turn to find Livia to be the culprit, a brow arched in silent question. I'm fine. Of course, Livia is the one who kind of gets your attention because she's your commander. And plus, if I remember correctly, Masha was absorbed in the book. Lucian snickers at this, their sharp teeth glinting. Fear is a natural human emotion. I scoff. I didn't say I was afraid. Masha lifts her head up from the small red book she's been poring over. No need to hide it from us, Ehab. There's no judgment here. Pinch the bridge of my nose with a groan, mostly to distract from the red I know colors my cheeks. Of course. And there really is no shame in being afraid. It means you're aware of the consequences of a mistake. No fear is just you're not aware of what could happen if you do fail. We aren't letting you anywhere near the castle. Eric is going to meet us at our last stop and take you to his cabin. You'll be safe there. The plan was hatched by my friends in the early hours of the morning. It's simple enough, but hearing Livia talk it out again does settle my nerves some. I lean back in my seat, willing the steady rocking of the coach to calm me down. But it doesn't last long. Masha snaps the book closed and clears her throat. We need to come up with a plan before we stop. Livia, who's been carefully inspecting her sword after an evening parted from it, pauses and narrows her eyes at the Archmage. I mean, I don't blame Livia for being concerned about her sword. We've hardly been on the road for an hour and you're already plotting? Maja breezes past the comment and holds up the book. This small book has been a treasure trove of information. This, along with the Marquis triplet's insight, clearly points to an object that we need to find. Now that your presence in the castle will be prohibited, that's putting it gently. True. We must find a way to get Ehab into the castle. With a flurry of blue swirls, the book opens to a page with an illustration. More specifically, the throne room. With every sentence, a dark pit of dread grows in my stomach. The throne room is the heart of the castle, and it's always occupied by their majesties, guards, or both. Are we sure it won't be the armory? Callisto deliberately made reference to a weapon. I'm in the armory every day. If there's anything of note in there besides blunt, rusty swords, I would have seen it by now. A weapon capable of defeating a god isn't in there. That's fair. Well, it sounds like the thing is nearly ancient. It could be blunted and rusty. Her nose scrunches and she shakes her head. No. It's valuable. It won't be kept in the armory. Masha is right. The throne room is your best bet, which begs the question. She crosses her arm and looks at Masha expectantly. How the hell are we going to smuggle Ehab in there? There's nowhere else in Novus that's as heavily guarded, aside from the royal bedchambers. I would know. Lucian doesn't look away from the window when they speak, almost like they're speaking to themselves. I could dispose of the ward's protection spells with ease, if that helps. The rest of us stare down the demon. Masha and Livia's eyes are white as saucers, their shock quickly growing into irritation. Quite the time to tell us this, Lucian. Well, it isn't time to ensure they can help. You didn't think to mention this before? Lucian looks at them with a genuine smile and gives a thoughtful hum. Not really, no. Masha takes a stealing breath. Well, I guess we have that part of the plan settled. You must really like me, huh? Apologies. Took a drink and it went down the wrong pipe. The grin is more smug than I've ever seen. I take matters of national security very seriously, Ehab. Lucian pauses. That's all very well and good, but it doesn't help us getting Ehab physically into the throne room. Well, you're in charge of the guards. Come on. Claire, I want to talk. Can you send them away for a while? Yes, but it isn't that simple. The doors to the throne room are locked when not in use. The guards are easy. Where there's a small bump in the road, small bump, is acquiring the key. It requires 2 separate halves. Livia rustles around in a hidden pocket in her cloak and pulls out a key attached to a worn red ribbon. As the Knight Commander, I'm required to keep this on my person at all times, but the other half stays with the Queen and it never leaves her side, even when she sleeps. Shit. I look at Masha. Can't we just magically make the door open? I waggle my hands for emphasis. I did exactly that. You can't see me, but I did waggle my hands when I read that part. That's a liability. What's the purpose of keys when any mage can just magic their way in? Security precaution. Can't make it too easy for mages or regular humans. Can't argue with that. Thankfully, a white-haired solution quickly comes to mind. So we just need to get the other key? That shouldn't be too much of a problem. A loud cackle escapes from Livia. Sorry, but you don't find that a problem? I'd love to hear why. We have one of the Serpent Guild's best assassins at our fingertips. Raiden sneaks into the castle all the time. I'm sure the throne room won't be too much of a stretch. Livia glares at me. Her left eye twitches slightly. Tell them, Lucian. They helped Raiden make off with one of Lord Ellington's prized ferrets once. Now Lucian and Livia are both giving me dirty looks. Clearly Raiden has been telling stories. At least that's the rumor. Right. Lucian opens her mouth, but Livia shushes them with a hand held up. I'll deal with you later. Masha breaks up the tension with a small clap of her hands. That was easier than expected, but a plan won't do us any good unless we know when to put it in motion. At this, 3 pairs of eyes fall on me. I swallow thickly, my mouth suddenly dry, and I wring my hands. You didn't get any information about a timeline? No, I didn't. If I'd been lucky enough to get a straightforward of an answer as a date and time, I would have cried. Everyone in Novus speaks in riddles. Right? It's like the national pastime. But I know that whatever's coming is going to be sooner rather than later. True. We need to act quickly, but if we do it right after we get back, that's only going to send us into the unknown completely unprepared. Maja nods along as she listens, her mind clearly focused on something else. Then we won't waste time. We'll lie low for a week and figure out our next steps once we help Ehab get in and out of the throne room. My blood runs cold. A week is a very short amount of time, but also a very long time to wait. Very true. Very true. Lucian pipes up, eyes bright with mischief. I wonder if the throne room is booby-trapped and taking the weapon sets them all off. Lucian! Why would you think of that? Maja doesn't skip a beat, clearly used to their antics. I can assure you, it isn't. Lucian sighs wistfully. A shame. To you, maybe. Make a note to not mention this part of the conversation to Raiden. There's no doubt he'd be on the same page as Ambassador Veritas. There's a reason they're lovers. Or fuck buddies, at least. Maja continues on, ignoring us. I think your squire needs to stay at the castle as well. Your absence will be noted, but if Maddox disappears as well, that might draw too much suspicion. My heart drops to my stomach. Only if we're positive that he'll be out of harm's way. He's a good and loyal friend to me now, and I don't want innocent people getting hurt because of me. It's hard enough knowing you all are putting yourself in danger. Maja's expression softens as she pats my knee gently. We'll watch him like a hawk. Besides, he's quite close with that Vithrian knight. If they work together, they should be able to keep a low profile. Oh my gosh, I didn't pick up on this, but yeah, Olivia is aware. She knows. Oh, Maddox would blush so hard if he knew that she knew. Take a shaky breath. It isn't a huge comfort, but I feel better knowing Maddox will be safe. We should meet in the next few days as well. If something changes, we need to be able to reconvene. How about the tavern in 5 days? The crowd is almost always full of people. There's undoubtedly spies there, too. Masha waves her hand and grins. Leave that to me. With that, the carriage grows quiet. An odd sense of calm washes over me at having a plan. It isn't much, and I doubt it will last longer than the next few hours, but I'm grateful for it all the same. I close my eyes as I'm gently jostled by the coach, and it isn't long until I doze off completely. That's my brother. He goes to sleep so easily in cars. I only go to sleep if I'm super tired. My twin sister visited from Idaho a couple weeks ago, and we went on a boat trip, and we were driving back, and my brother was in the back seat. He fell asleep, but I stayed awake and helped keep my sister awake, because apparently she was super tired. Of course, she doesn't do well with, she gets motion sick fairly easily, but she, and my mom too, but she and my mom both took Dramamine and had these wristbands that are supposed to help keep motion sickness away. I feel a cool hand on my arm and I jolt awake, nearly knocking my head into Livia's where she leans over me. You'd think Livia would have learned after waking up the ambassador. We've stopped. You need to go meet Eric. I nod, rubbing my eyes and getting my bearings. I peek out of the window. Everyone is streaming out of the carriages in the opposite direction, hurrying into the nearby inn to refresh themselves. I've never been happier that my plain clothes are, well, plain. It'll be easier for me to go unnoticed now that I'm no longer in bright, noble finery. As I make my way out, my 3 companions poke their heads out of the door behind me. Stay safe, please. Tell me what Eric keeps in his cabin. He's never let me in there. Lucian, is that really what you're worried about? Lucian flinches as Maja swats at them. Go now. We'll touch base with you when we can. With a nod, I turn back and walk to the forest in front of me. I move quickly, trying to channel Rue and Raiden as much as I can, and will my steps to be as quiet as possible. It isn't long until the caravan is fully out of my sight, the dense cluster of trees shielding it from view. It's now that I realize that I could very easily get lost in here, but I push down the panic that starts to creep up my throat. I just have to push through. Literally. Rue found me early in the morning to tell me about a specific river that cuts through nearby. Once I find that, I can follow it to Eric. I can't talk. I can't read. I swear it. My body instantly relaxes when I hear the babbling of flowing water, and I give an excited yelp when I see Eric and his horse shortly after. You made it! Raiden was worried you'd get lost and end up eaten by rabid possums. First of all, possums are small. There's no way they could eat a human. Possums? Not, a bear or any other carnivorous beast? Eric shrugs. I didn't give him the chance to explain himself. Good idea. That's probably for the best. Eric's horse lifts its head from drinking in the river and nickers softly. He looks up at the patches of sky shining through the dense canopy and nods to himself. We should start heading out. The sun is going to set soon, and I'd like to be as close to my cabin as possible when that happens. He pulls out a carrot from his pack and points in a seemingly random direction with it before feeding it to the horse. Rue left earlier than the rest of us and laid out a path that leads directly to my property. The area Eric just gestured to is incredibly unremarkable, and if Eric hadn't said there was a path there, I would never have assumed there was one. Where is it? I don't see any trails or markings for us to follow. Eric chuckles as he offers his hand to me to help me get onto the horse. It's marked, but only in a way I can see. Rue made sure that there won't be any prying eyes or ears that might send word back to Adora and Thaddeus. Taking one horse was less conspicuous too. There we go. Why do I keep adding stuff? Make a mental note to buy Rue the sweetest treat I can find at the market the next chance I get. If I get the chance. Don't talk like that! You're going to survive! I swear it! Nope. I'm going to stop that line of thinking right now and focus on hurling my leg over the back of the horse instead, which I'm sure makes me look terribly ungraceful. Eric settles into the saddle in front of me before pulling his long hair up and tying it into a haphazard bun with a small piece of leather. Be honest with me. You don't get sick of the compliments about your hair, do you? Eric laughs boisterously, his head tilted back before he looks at me with a grin. Honestly, never. A giggle bubbles out of me at the rare show of confidence. So, the irritation is an act? I'm never telling you your hair is nice ever again. Just wait until Raiden hears about this. He raises a brow and kicks his heels in, sending the horse jolting forward. I tip back dangerously, but before I tumble off the horse completely, a strong hand pulls me back up by my arm. Next time, don't tease him while he's in charge of the horse. What were you saying? My hands shake as I wrap them around his waist, holding on much more tightly than before. Nothing, my good sir. Nothing at all. Eric focuses on the path once more, and with a laugh slows the horse to a brisk trot. There's tremendous comfort in leaning flush against the broad expanse of his back, breathing in the scent of him among the forest. His breathing is steady, matching the beat of the horse's footsteps. I feel light as a feather, and safe. We make excellent time, reaching the clearing of Eric's cabin only a little while after nightfall, before the sky became an inky black. I've hardly taken a step into the cabin when I'm nearly tackled in a flurry of red and white, Rue and Raiden muttering a barrage of comments. When the sun went down, I started to think you had been eaten by possums. I wait a moment for Eric to give a gruff retort, but he seems to have evaporated and disappeared into his room. I have to admit, there's a part of me that wants to know about your apparent phobia of possums, but I get the feeling that it's better that I don't ask. Rue nods solemnly and holds a finger to Raiden's mouth before he tries to speak. You're better off not knowing. They know him well. But, from the codex entries, they've known Raiden since he was since he was a kid. Since he was itty bitty. Their expression melts in an instant, and they scoop me up in a warm embrace, and I can feel some of the exhaustion melt off of me from it. We're so happy you made it back safely. Thanks in no small part to you. Their sharp teeth glint in the candlelight as their smile widens. Helping you is easy, Ehab. Aww. Raiden has moved to Eric's door, his forehead thumping against it while he whines. Eric, open up! I need to check you for possum bites. They carry rabies. I think that's supposed to be Raiden, not Rue. He smooshes his cheek against the doorway and turns to look at me, seeking a new target. Where's my hug? Right here, but I stink of forest and horse. Sexy. Rue, sensing that my legs are wobbly from riding, ushers me to sit down at the small table, and I sigh in relief. My legs throb as I stretch them out. I want nothing more than to shove my face full of food, then promptly pass out, but I have to get everyone on the same page first. So, about what happened at the ball. Raiden and Rue draw nearer, the Fae perching cross-legged on the table, and Ray spreads his legs out on the floor. Eric slips out of his room at this and settles into the chair next to me. I love that Rue sits on the table. It's so Rue. If we're going to move forward and stop whatever's coming at us, you all need to know the information I received from that night. And while I was on the coach back from Mardurin, we hatched a plan. The red book sits heavy in my palm as I pull it out from my pocket. To the surprise of no one, Adora and Thaddeus are working together with Novus to do something which I will safely assume means the end of the world as we know it. And hearing myself say that out loud makes it far more terrifying, but I think there's a way we can stop them. I'm gonna stop you right there. I look at him, brows furrowed in confusion. Eric nudges him a little harshly with his boot, and Raiden hisses dramatically. Right, not the time to fuck with you. Duly noted. Please continue. Raiden narrowly misses a swat to the back of his head from Eric, much to the older man's chagrin. Rue gently plucks the book from my fingers and flips through it while I get the conversation back on track. I didn't think much of it at first, but the one thing that's mentioned in here that I think could be of use is a sword. One that holds a lot of power that's been passed down by royals from generation to generation. Eric grows still at this, his brows furrowed in the middle. He gives an amused hug. That's one of the oldest stories in Errantis, which is as good as myth these days. Sir Ewan existed, but the stories have snowballed over the centuries. I hate to say it, but the Grumpus is right. Even I was told that as a kid in the guild. If there was something that cool in the castle, I would have stolen it already. Typical Raiden. Or, more likely such a thing existed, then the Queen and King would be making a grand show of having it. I spent most of my life in that castle, and there was never a sword that seemed to be imbued with ancient power. It does seem improbable, but there was something Callisto mentioned to me as we were departing Ardurin. She alluded that this sword is hidden somewhere in the castle. If I had to guess, it would be in the throne room, where they keep all the precious heirlooms. If she's right, that'll be the key to thwarting whatever plan Novus is wanting to set in motion. Raiden and Rue's eyes shine with excitement. Eric, on the other hand, looks wholly unimpressed. So we just have to break it to the most heavily guarded place in the country? Raiden looks at me and scrunches his nose. Even I couldn't break into the throne room. Too many of those pesky magic wards. It's my greatest failure in life, and any of you tell Layla that our friendship is over. I sigh. Trust me, Livia and Masha made it explicitly clear what we're up against, but we've hatched as much of a plan as we could. Masha and Lucian will have the wards taken care of. Don't forget about the key. You need both halves of it to unlock the door. Livia's going to give me the half she carries with her, which leads me to you, Raiden. Oh no. Raiden perks up at this, rocking side to side in anticipation. Am I about to be bestowed a most important task? Raiden. You are. Hell yes! He gives a small pump of his fist. I need you to come with me. Livia says the other piece of the key is in the Queen's bedchamber. We need to go and retrieve it, and then you can redeem yourself and help me in the throne room. The assassin just nods, eyes wide like I've given him something precious. I look at Eric, who rubs his beard thoughtfully. It's not a terrible plan, I guess. Ever the optimist, Eric. When are we planning on sneaking in? A week. Masha's going to meet us at the Crown in 5 days to solidify everything. Rue and Raiden nod, but Eric still looks unconvinced. What's wrong? You said it wasn't a terrible plan. The plan isn't bad, no, but we're risking a lot for a sword from a children's tale. The foundation of this plan isn't on firm ground. Do you really think a piece of metal is going to help us against an actual god? A piece of metal that's magical, apparently. There's no denying that Eric is making a very logical and sound point. It's a tempting thought to fall into, but it isn't going to get us anywhere. You're not wrong, but I can't look at it that way. What do we have left if we walk into this thinking we're going to fail? Then it will be a hopeless endeavor. I'm not foolish enough to know that the odds are wildly stacked against us. But they still will be, whether or not we get this sword. Besides, what else would we do? This is the only lead we have, real or not. I can feel the mark on my back tingle. It's been hard to decipher what little Knitra's told me, but it was very clear that it will be impossible to defeat Novus alone. We need all the help we can get. Rue wrings their hands nervously and stands up. Stands up on the table so they're even taller. I have an idea. I'm not sure it'll work though. Raiden pokes him gently in the thigh in encouragement. If the sword is real, we'll need it, but we don't know what Novus' plan actually is or who they've recruited. I'm going to talk to the Fae and Novus. They tend to align more with my sister, but they need to realize that this affects us, too. Even if they don't care about mortals, they don't want their lives turned upside down. Very true. So it's either help us or run away and live as a tree for a millennia. That doesn't sound appealing. They scrunch their face in disgust. I reach out my hand and Rue takes it gladly, smiling when I give them a reassuring smile. Thank you, Rue. I know that this isn't the easiest thing to do. Raiden stands as well, his chest puffing slightly. I have lots of favors owed to me by members of the guild. I'll throw my weight around and see what I can do. The silence settles amongst us, a quiet affirmation that we've done what we can for tonight. I'm exhausted, mentally and physically, and I can feel myself sway in my seat. Raiden laughs and ruffles my hair. I think it's time for our two favorite knights to hit the hay, yeah? I just grunt in acknowledgement. Somehow I managed to mumble out thanks and goodbyes before crawling into bed. With a week until we enact our plan, all there is to do really is wait. And wait. I stay at Eric's cabin, not willing to run the risk of being seen in public. Time seems to stretch endlessly here, and in a different scenario I'd find it idyllic. Instead, I feel like I'm going stir-crazy. Yeah, it's one thing when you decide to stay inside because you want to. It's another thing when you decide to stay inside because you have to. Eric has a routine and sticks to it. He disappears in the morning to hunt whatever beast or capture whoever has a bounty on their head. He wakes early, spends an inordinate amount of the time chopping wood, but hardly ever cooks. I'm assuming it's mostly due to the fact that the only thing in his house were a couple of loose potatoes. Raiden comes by daily, sharing whatever news he manages to collect in town. There's nothing coming from the castle, but he always has dirt on nobles he sees in the market. I make a pointed effort to shove down the uneasy feelings that the silence from the castle brings. Maddox manages to send me a message, and there's a flood of relief at seeing that he's safe and unharmed. I have no doubt that Cedric is keeping a close eye on him and soothes my worry, even if it's only by a little. Rue doesn't fail to show up every evening with fresh flowers. They've taken to weaving them in my hair as a sort of crown, and I let myself enjoy the feeling of Rue playing with my hair. Eric conspicuously avoids us during this time, but I caught him with a daisy behind his ear one night. It's an odd sort of routine we've fallen into. From the outside looking in, I have no doubt that it would seem normal, if not downright domestic. I mean, spending time with one of the people that they love. Sounds fun. But the truth of it is that we're all restless, like something is buzzing under our skin, while we anticipate breaking into the castle and the uncertainty that comes after it. Part of me wonders what would have happened if I hadn't come to Novus. Would the gods have chosen someone else? An ambassador, perhaps? Maybe an assassin like Raiden? It's a pointless, spiraling thought that I catch myself in more often than I'd like. Acknowledging the other two routes, I love it. Finally, the day of our meeting with Maja arrives. There's a new sort of chaotic energy that sets me on edge. I'm up before the sun and unable to really stomach anything from the nerves. Eric comes back early, before the sky begins to darken, and makes the effort to clean off before we head to the crown. Is all that effort for me? Eric looks at me from the corner of his eye. It isn't polite to be in society covered in guts. That hasn't stopped you from going to the crown before? He only grunts at this and mutters something about Rue and Raiden being bad influences. I can't help but feel my heart ache a bit as we come back into town. If I concentrate enough, it feels like I'm going to meet a friend for drinks, get too loud, and stumble home singing old battle jigs. As we near the crown, there's a distinct lack of noise. Typically, you can hear the din of the place from down the street. Instead, what greets us is the loud creak of the door and a tavern that is empty save for a lone figure at a table in the middle. I'll be damned. I have to admit, I'm a little shocked. Nemesis is hard to deal with on a good day. I can't imagine what Masha did to convince her to empty the tavern, even for a little while. Bag of money. That seems to be what Nemesis appreciates the most. Money. Money, money, money by the pound. What spell did you put on Nemesis to get her to agree to this? Masha chuckles. Sometimes coin can do things that no magic ever could, but we don't have much time, and there's much to discuss. Please tell me you have good news. Maja gives a tight smile and my heart sinks. Don't have much of it, but while your absence in the castle has been noticed, there haven't been any rumors flying about over your whereabouts. I do what I can. Oh. One of my shoulders has been giving me trouble since yesterday, and I just shifted wrong. That is surprising to say the least, but I won't look a gift horse in the mouth. Unfortunately, though, our plan may face a few more obstacles than we originally thought. Their majesties have become reclusive and unpredictable since we arrived. Rarely are they seen outside of their chambers, and they only meet with Privy Council when it's unavoidable. My access to them has been cut, which makes anticipating their next movements harder, to say the least. Livia fares no better than I do. So, maybe, Nazir was aware of them trying to get at you at the ball? I think it's safe to assume that they suspect something with Ahab's absence. He pauses. What about Nazir? Masha sighs and shakes her head. He never leaves their orbit. Her full mouth sets in the ghost of a frown, her eyes shimmering for a moment before she takes a deep breath to settle herself. I offer my hand to her, palm up and fingers wiggling, and she takes it with a sad smile. This can't be easy for you on top of everything else. I'm sorry. I can't begin to understand what you're going through. She squeezes my hand. It's difficult, I won't lie, but the truth is that we've been distant for a long time. I just hoped he would drift closer instead of further away from me. Yeah, that's one nice thing about modern technology is it helps us keep in touch with loved ones and keep the connection going. She looks to Eric, who's been watching her with an expression that seems almost heartbroken. The main issue we seem to be running into is securing the second half of the key. Restricted access to the queen makes a difficult task even harder. The number of guards have increased as well. I grimace and Eric crosses his arms. Surely there's some way to work around this. There might be. I recently spoke with Lady Silverleaf. I think she could become an important asset to us. I'm fine. This surprises me. Eleanor tolerates mortals on a good day, but she wouldn't have given Maja any of her time if she didn't find it worthwhile. What did you have to say? She wasn't too keen on the idea of helping the mortals last time we spoke. What fae I have in my blood helped me escape most of her ire, thankfully. I'm not surprised. She voiced similar thoughts in our conversation. However, you definitely left an impression on her. She wasn't convinced, but it seems that you made her reconsider, despite the overwhelmingly negative odds. I can't take the credit for that, I'm afraid. Rue is a fiercely loyal friend. I mostly played backup. But she made it clear that she knew about the mark Kanidros gave me and that she wasn't the only one aware. Rue was going to speak to more of the Fae for help. Maybe word got around to Lady Silverleaf. Maja hums thoughtfully, and there's a spark of hope at the prospect of Lady Silverleaf lending her aid. Well, what matters is that Lady Silverleaf is going to give us a chance and offered up any assistance we may require that's within her capabilities. I immediately thought of her penchant for wandering the castle like an unseen spirit. A smile dares to curl at the corners of my mouth. Raiden is going to be sorely disappointed that his redemption mission has been nixed. Still, though, I can't deny that I'm surprised. The clock on the wall chimes for the hour. Don't have much time left. Once we get the keys, we will have to deal with the throne room doors, which we all know are outlandishly big and loud. Sneaking won't really be much of an option. Raiden will absolutely take that as a challenge. Maja frowns, opens her mouth to speak, but closes it again while she finds the right words to say. This is a terribly delicate situation. Are we sure that including him would be the best option? Eric jumps in before I even get a chance to defend the assassin. The little bastard is annoying, but he's undeniably unmatched when it comes to things like this. He's trustworthy, Maja. Oh, it says a lot that Eric's the one who says that. Like, Maja has known Eric a long time. I mean, they were lovers, hello. But the fact that he says this, I think, carries more weight than the main character does in this case, because Maja's known Eric all this time. He scoped the throne room before when he tried to break in and failed. Raiden knows what to avoid and the best escape routes, which is useful to us. Plus, he says he can flatten himself like a cat if that helps. Maja laughs and shakes her head. It doesn't, but I trust you. Aww. What about Livia? Does she still have control over the guards? She does. Livia's worked out a plan to keep them distracted as far away from the doors as she possibly can. But that still doesn't fix the issue of how loud the doors are. What if we just made an even louder noise to cover it? I mean, not the best, but I mean, when you're thinking on your feet like this. The way Eric and Maja looks at me makes me shrink back, and I feel like a kid about to be scolded by their parents, but the harsh words don't come. That's not a bad idea, actually. It isn't. Between Lucian and I'm sure we can think of something. Maybe fake a thunderstorm. It could also serve as a signal as well. I'm not sure how long it'll take us to find the sword, but if something happens where we need to get out quick, then you'll be able to alert us. And then we regroup and come up with a different plan. Maja seems placated by this idea, but Eric fidgets and shifts in his seat. What is it, Eric? Takes a deep breath and clenches and releases his fists. Tell me the truth, Maja. Do you really think this is going to work? This whole situation seems unbelievable. Maja and I share a look and we chuckle. It is unbelievable, but sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Yeah, exactly. You can't put this kind of shit in a book, because people wouldn't believe that it's actually possible. Eric doesn't look convinced. Our success hinges upon fighting a mythical sword. We're also going to be fighting an omnipotent god. It's interesting watching the two of them go back and forth like this, with Maja meeting Eric at his level. I can't help but smile at them. Do you trust Ehab, Eric? He doesn't hesitate. I do. Then there's your answer. If things don't work out and we need to try something different, we will. But right now, this is what we have to go off of. Exactly. We don't have anything else to plan for, so this is better than sitting around doing nothing to prepare. At least we're doing something. Even if it doesn't work out, at least we've tried. Eric nods and holds his hands up in defeat. Then so be it. The two of you together are quite formidable. Maja chuckles and moves to stand. I'm going to step outside. Thank you, Maja, for everything. Of course. Before you go, the triplets asked me to give you something. She slides an all too familiar tarot card across the table. On it, there's a woman with 2 pitchers of water in hand as she nears a lake, labeled the Star. In delicate writing across the top is only one word: hope. Our time finally comes to an end at the sound of 3 loud knocks at the tavern door, no doubt from Nemesis. We all stand, but Eric nudges a little closer to Maja and I inch towards the door. I'll see you in 2 days. Maja nods. Bring your assassin friend with you and be at the castle at midnight exactly. Thank you, Maja. You've done so much for me at this point, I doubt I'll ever make it up to you. She watches us as we head out and start back to the cabin. Sleep becomes near impossible, the anticipation of what's to come making me far too restless to stay still longer than a few minutes. Based on how my friends are faring, it's clear that I'm not the only one in that boat. Finally, the night of what Raiden has lovingly dubbed the sword heist comes. Raiden shows up almost the second the sun sinks below the horizon, holding up a raggedy bag stuffed with clothes. Hope you're ready for a fashion show. I pull out some of the clothes, and they're similar to what Raiden wears himself. Soft, thin, and dark, is perfect for moving around undetected at night. I move to thank him, but an intrusive thought invades my brain. Be honest with me. Rude. I'm always honest. But what is it? Did someone die in these clothes? Raiden pops his lips and gives a nervous laugh. Right. Well, in the spirit of honesty, I'm going to tell you that it isn't out of the realm of possibility. Please, say less. His smile is a little too forced as I walk away with the clothes. Once they've been donned, he fits me with some light leather armor like his. When he's finished, he takes a step back and wipes a non-existent tear from his eye. I finally corrupted you, my little knight. Your father is so proud, aren't you, Eric? Look, Eric, as Raiden makes the younger man back down immediately. No. I'm sorry to disappoint, but I'm not going to be killing anybody, Ray. He waves me off. Yeah, that's what they all say. He pats over himself, reaching into pockets and muttering through a checklist like he's trying not to forget anything. I mean, that's fair. He's got to make sure he has everything that he needs. Right, we should get moving. We've got a date with a sexy magic sword, and it'd be untoward to be late. I nod. Despite my years of training, the high stakes tonight holds sends a wave of nerves shuddering through me. Eric notices and puts a warm hand on my shoulder. You've got this, Ehab. I mean, even if I can't, I kind of have to. Eric chuckles. Fair enough, I suppose. Here. Hands me a short sword in its scabbard. I didn't even realize I'd been without my own sword since the ball. Most of my belongings are back at the castle. Thanks. With that, Raiden and I head out towards the castle. We set a quick pace, the urgency of the situation and settling in from the moment we leave the cabin. We weave easily through the forest and the town easily. We don't need easily twice, but oh well. The moon almost at its peak in the sky when we arrive at our destination. Raiden takes a moment to wander around one of the outer walls, tugging on various flights that cling to the stone. He makes a happy noise as he finds one he approves of, jerking his chin up to the window. I hoist myself up behind Raiden, and I'm still surprised at how quickly he moves. My training definitely helps me, but I'm no match for him. Not that it's competition. At least, to me it isn't. I win! His voice is chipper as I ungracefully step into the room. Raiden beams at me, hands on his hips. It takes me a moment to realize where exactly I am. My room in the castle. I look at him with a raised brow. You're such a sap. I know. Leela says it's one of my worst qualities, but I think she meant the opposite. In the distance, the town clock strikes midnight, cutting our conversation short. Wordlessly, we begin to make our way to the throne room. We pass through relatively easily, only having to hide in side corridors a couple times and wait for the oblivious guards to walk by. The path to the throne room is a bit of a labyrinth. I suspect it's a power play to dizzy guests and throw them off guard before they have to deal with the queen and king. Just as we're about to descend to the next level, Raiden grabs the back of my shirt and holds me still, putting a finger over his lips when I turn to look at him. Points to my left, and I see Naja and Lucian waiting for us. I won't deny the relief that floods through me at seeing them, but I can tell that they're just as dressed. It's an odd look on Lucian's face when they're usually aloof. Naja looks almost surprised. You're on time. Raiden and I look at each other. I think training beat the tardiness out of me, and it's in my job description to be punctual. He grins. Get it? Because I'm an assassin? I elbow him in the side. Masha looks mortified, but Lucian just chuckles. We got it. Right, well, we've taken care of all the wards for you, but there's a small caveat. It would be foolish to think that Maja here is the only one that's keeping an eye on the wards of the castle. You need to be keenly aware of time. The wards will need to be back before anyone catches on. The air between us grows still as the reality of the situation fully sinks in. It's now or never, and we've only got a small amount of time to find the sword and escape. Livia is in position to pull the guards as far away from their posts as she can. We'll stay up here to give you more coverage. Masha has devised a spell to have a loud roll thunder boom, but only in your area of the castle. She refused to take the credit, so I'm being braggadocious in her stead. That is admittedly quite impressive. One day we'll find something you can't do. Masha chuckles. Oh, I'm absolutely rotten at checkers. She waves us on. There's no time to waste. We'll signal you when it's time to go. Raiden and I continue down the stairs, quickly advancing towards the throne room. We pause when we hear Livia speaking to her inner commander voice. I resist the urge to straighten up at the sound of it. Different reaction to Livia's voice for the night. But it makes sense. You're keeping watch over one of the most important rooms in the castle and can't recall the last time a proper inspection was done? How can you identify any vulnerable spots when you haven't been looking? A shiver goes down my spine, my body conditioned after years of training, even though I'm not the one getting disciplined. I can hear the armor of the guards clink softly as they shift, one clearing his throat before he mutters something like a sheepish apology. You two, come with me. We'll sweep the area together. Maybe then you'll learn how to do your job properly. But, Commander, we aren't supposed to leave our post. Well, your commander is ordering you to come with her. Do I need to repeat myself? Oh gosh, this is perfect dressing down. There's more grumbling, and then the clink of armor as the three of them walk away from the throne room. We take the opportunity to continue on, hurrying towards the throne room as quietly as we can. Turning a corner, we see the door is shining at the end of the hall. I'm still surprised at the grandeur of the doors, despite seeing them on a regular basis. The filigree inlaid within the doors shines in the flickering light of the torches lighting the hallway. Raiden's eyes grow wide and he moves closer like he's a moth drawn to a flame. The cool metal sends a shiver through my body when I place my hand on it. I lightly drag my fingertips across the surface, searching for a place to put the key. Oh, shit. The key! I must have said that part out loud because Raiden's head whips towards me so fast I'm surprised his neck doesn't crack. Wasn't Livia going to give you her half? Yes, I have that half. His face falls, the skin below his left eye twitching. A wave of nausea hits me as I feel our mission slipping through my fingers. It's such a huge oversight. My vision begins to swim, but a soft voice cuts through my panic. I believe you're looking for this. Fucking shit! The sound of Lady Silverleaf's voice startles Raiden. Velvet yelps and moves to pull out a dagger. I slap a hand over his mouth before I can do anything else and give a tense smile to Eleanor. We are. Thank you. You're just in time. Raiden lets out a grunt and bites down on the heel of my hand, and I snatch it away with a glare. Wiping the spit on my trousers, I hold up my hand, and Eleanor drops the key into my palm with a look of thinly veiled disgust. We can't thank you enough for this. I'll admit that I was surprised when Masha told me you would help us. Her eyes glint with something I can't quite place as she looks over us, her face slipping back into its usual facade. Both my sibling and the Archmage came to me. I'd never seen Rue so determined, and Masha put some things into perspective for me. Neither of them are fools, and their belief in you and your cause swayed me. I let myself believe that I could see the corner of her mouth turn up in the suggestion of a smile. The magic of the Fae sinks in your blood, sir. I trust that you know that bonds between humans and Fae are not made with levity. The mortal world will always be in flux, and while I do not concern myself with the fate of humans, I will always care for Rue. They are my priority, and their well-being is tied with your lot, for better or for worse. A low, deep rumble begins to sound, and I can feel it buzz in my chest. It's time to move on. Yeah, so, it doesn't matter that she's helping because it would help Rue. The fact is, she's helping, regardless of her reasons. Thank you again, my lady. She nods. Good luck. The air around her begins to shimmer, and in an instant, she's gone. I turn towards Raiden. Did you really have to bite me? He blinks, tilts his head side to side, and purses his lips. No, but it was hilarious. But it was funny, huh? My fingers twitch with the instinct to cut the back of his head, but the glint of firelight off the doors distracts me. You can finish your weird courting ritual later. We have work to do. Raiden scoffs, but doesn't protest, peeking over my shoulder as I take the key and search for its place. The detail of the doors makes it difficult to see, and I feel time slipping as I frantically feel for a keyhole, a latch, anything that could work. I take a step back for a moment to try and reorient myself, not trying to get bogged down, and lazily swipe my hand near the handle of the right door. Some curved filigree, a slight divot in a straight line. Hold on. Keeping my finger on it, I look forward and see a small square outlined with a hinge. Pressing forward, it clicks open to reveal the keyhole. So sometimes we can see better with our hands. Interesting. Oh, thank goodness, I was beginning to fear that we'd be here all night. I can only grunt in response as I slide the key in, holding my breath like I'm waiting for something to go wrong. There's another rumble of thunder as I feel the lock latch open, the loud sound thankfully hidden by Masha's handiwork, and Raiden and I hurriedly pull the door open just enough for us to slip through. We push the door closed with our shoulders, our breaths coming in heavy as we finally turn to look at the room in front of us. The two thrones sit in the center, drawing your attention to it. It's clever, a distraction from everything that lines the back of the room. Let's get to work. It's a near gaudy display of riches. It's not quite a dragon sword of gold, but glittering jewels and various crowns and tiaras are proudly put on display. It's like they're daring us to take all of it. I flick his arm. Focus! As we traverse deeper into the throne room, there are hidden nooks and crannies that hide interesting items. There are impressive weapons that adorn the walls. There's a sword with a garishly bejeweled pommel that Raiden and I both lock eyes on. That's gotta be it, yeah? I grab the sword, my fingers gliding over the smooth jewels embedded in it, giving it a few experimental swings. Excuse me, I shake my head. I don't think so. This is a rapier, not something that's meant to be used in battles over centuries. There's hardly a scratch on this one. Raiden yelps as I toss the sword to him while I continue my search. There's a number of portraits hanging on the walls, the judgmental stares of the subjects in the gilded frames sending shivers down my spine, like they know the grave felony I'm committing. The two of us begin looking on opposite sides of the room. I find myself pausing every few moments in anticipation of Maja's signal, making it difficult for me to really focus. After some time, Raiden and I sigh in unison. No luck? For what we're after? No. But for my own personal gain? Absolutely. I slink down against the wall and thump my head against it. I can feel that the time we have to safely get out of here is dwindling quickly, and there's still no sight of this blasted sword. As I move to stand, I stumble. My hand extends out next to me for stability. Instead of the cool touch of marble, is the metallic bite of a sword. There's barely enough time to examine it before blinding pain bursts from my shoulder. I scramble to find the pommel, my skin getting nicked on the blade, and I gasp. Ehab! The pain begins to recede, my vision no longer swimming. I manage to hold out the sword in front of me. It's deceptively normal, a dull silver with scratches marring the surface. If I hadn't just sliced my hand open, I would have assumed the blade was dull. Holy shit! Raiden rushes up to me, ignoring the sword in my hand. He steps behind me and wrenches down the back of my shirt. Hey! Your shoulder was going. Are you okay? Did you get hurt? If you wanted to undress me, you should have just asked. He looks down and notices the small droplets of blood sliding off of my hand. Here, let me bandage that. Raiden. I stop him with a little tap of the blade on his shoulder, like a monarch dubbing a would-be knight. Raiden freezes, staring at the weapon resting on his shoulder. Wait, is this? I nod vigorously. This is it. I can feel it. The pain in my shoulder aside, I can feel that the sword is absolutely brimming with power. I've handled a lot of weapons in my time as a knight. Some of them just instinctively feel right more than others. But this is something else entirely. It hums with power in a way that almost feels sentient. Maja's signal boomed much louder than before, cutting our marveling time short. Raiden hastily grabs my hand and wraps a scrap of cloth tightly around it before tugging at my wrist to get us out of there. Here. We wriggle through and close the doors as quickly as we can, the echo of Livia and the guards closer than I feel comfortable with. Raiden locks the doors once more, and I am eternally grateful for his nimble fingers. I blindly follow Raiden as we retrace our steps back to the castle, my mind reeling from the actual success of finding this sword. It buzzes in my hand. I want nothing more than to just sit and study it, but almost ran into Maja and Lucien as we stare at a corner, snaps me out of my daze. Raiden holds the hand with the sword up and points. Look! Maja's eyes are wide, and even Lucien looks surprised. Are you sure that's it? I nod. When I touched it, my mark burned, and I can feel it. Don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like it's alive. I can feel the other three look at me with concern and skepticism, but they don't question it further. Lucien steps forward, holding a proper belt for me to slip the sword through. Thought you might need this. Smart. Now, why didn't they have that for the ambassador instead of just wrapping a cloth around their waist to keep but whatever. Thank you. Maja stills for a moment, looking behind her with narrowed eyes. Think it's time for you two to make your exit. They trail us as we head back to the window we entered through. Masha puts a warm hand on my shoulder. You should be all right to just head back down. If we time the guards correctly, we'll send word when we need to meet again. Be safe. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Maja eyes them warily, but says nothing as we haul ourselves over the railing. Raiden zips ahead, nimbly trailing down the greenery and jumping down the last 6 feet with a silent flourish. He watches me with an amused grin and mimes clapping his hands when I jump ungracefully down. You know, with a little tweaking, you'd be perfect for a life of crime. His smile doesn't fade as I ignore him and start heading back towards Eric's cabin. We keep a quick pace, slipping through the town and only slowing down once we see the familiar clearing in the forest. Eric paces between 2 of the trees, swinging his sword like a nervous habit. It slices silently through the air, and he stops midway through a sweeping motion when he catches sight of us. He jogs to meet us halfway and puts a strong hand on my and Ray's shoulders. You're back. His eyes dark. I think it should be dark, not dark, over us, checking us for wounds. I see him fixate on my bandaged hand. He opens his mouth to speak, but the words die in his throat as he notices the sword hanging off my belt. Is that it? You really found it? I nod, a giddy laugh bubbling out of me. Now that I'm safe, the rush of success makes my head swim and I hold the sword up to look at it. How can you be sure? Raiden points to me. Ehab's shoulder glowed and said it tingles. I can't be bothered to chastise him while I focus on the feeling of the sword in my hand. Eric's hand twitches like he wanted to reach out and touch it. I'm about to turn the sword over to him for him to hold, but I'm almost knocked off balance by the bump of Raiden's hip. I'll let you and your new friend canoodle in peace. It's going to be my bedtime in a few hours, so it's best for me to hit the road. Thank you, Raiden. I couldn't have done this without you. He bows low with a wink. I know. He disappears quickly into the forest, and Eric and I trod back into the cabin. There's an inherent safety about it that immediately sets me at ease, and all at once I feel the adrenaline from the seeding leave my body. Eric chuckles beside me. I've got to hand it to you. I'm impressed. I give a tired shrug. It was easy as pie. My words are undermined as I bump my hand against the kitchen table, and I wince in pain. Without another word, Eric rummages around for some bandages and a clean cloth. I don't have the energy to protest, even if I wanted to, and let him patch me back up. He ushers me into my room, and I barely have time to kick off my shoes before I succumb to sleep. I wake up in a sweat, jolting upright in bed. There are rays of golden light filtering through my window, and it soothes me to know that I wasn't asleep for too long. That is until a bright giggle erupts next to me. Rue rushes over to perch on my bed. You're awake! I was starting to worry. It's been a whole day. You were dead to the world for a bit there. So much for my finely tuned biological clock. My throat is dry and my voice is hoarse when I finally sleep. I think that was supposed to be speak. I hope I didn't miss anything important. Rue's face scrunches up in thought. No, just Raiden showcasing all the sparkly things he stole from the castle. They snapped their mouths shut with a small click, and I groan. Which he probably did while you were asleep on purpose. Most definitely. Our little group falls into an almost normal routine in the days following our heist. Raiden is almost constantly in the cabin when he isn't on guild business. Lady Silverleaf acts as an intermediary between us and Maja. We'd wanted to meet before our next move, but the castle rarely sees people coming in or out. I pretend to not notice the worried energy that surrounds Eric when she's mentioned. There's no real update on Livia or Lucian either. The lack of news is simultaneously good and bad. While nothing horrible is blatantly happening, there's no information on what the Queen and King are doing behind closed doors. Even Rue seems to grow nervous. While they normally can't sit still, they're now always in motion, pacing, hovering, climbing trees. Going around Eric's cabin is almost completely covered in flowers that spring up in the wake of Rue's frantic steps. There's a restlessness that settles into us, and it's proven useful in terms of getting as ready as possible for what Novus is planning. We're getting there, almost to the end. It's difficult to not know when it'll come, but the only options are to prepare or do nothing. Raiden and Rue have recruited the guild and a large number of the local fae, respectively. Lady Silverleaf delivers potions and enchanted talismans for protection. She also smuggles me my armor and my old sword. It's a strange sort of comfort to feel the worn-down pommel in my hand. Eric went from idly chopping wood to polishing up his old gear, specifically his sword. The rhythmic sound of the blade against the whetstone has become a soothing constant. It's almost easy to forget what we're waiting for until that day finally comes. It's relatively unexpected. The day starts with a calm, sunny morning, the breeze light and cool, only a few clouds dotting the sky. Rue and I are sitting out in the clearing when they stop moving for a moment, their pointed ear twitching. I look at them curiously, about to ask if they're all right, when they whirl around and stand, staring in the direction of the castle. Above the highest spire, a small swirl of gray has appeared. Rue makes a concerned noise. I'm sure it's just a cloud, Rue. No sooner do the words leave my mouth does the swirl begin to spin rapidly, long tendrils of gray shooting out of it and becoming something more like a vortex. The sky darkens, the breeze becoming a harsh wind and sending shivers down my spine. The sky rapidly fades from a bright blue to an ominous dark gray. The sunlight that warmed our faces disappearing. Wordlessly, we head back into the cabin to prepare. Each of us is silent as we don our armor and strap our weapons to our person. Eric looks stoic and resolute, like he's heading into battle. I can only hope to look that calm. Despite all my training and experience, I can't get my hands to stop shaking. Rue waits outside, the energy crackling with the powerful energy. That doesn't sound right. They're looking at the forest line, and I see many Fae begin to emerge from their trees, watching us closely. The plan is to meet Raiden at the castle with the guild, and work to meet Maja, Lucian, and Livia once we sneak into the castle. A near-deafening roar of thunder booms around us, the air sharp with the smell of ozone and something that's bitter and metallic. Eric steps outside, nodding, and it's time to go. Instinctively, I fall in line behind Eric. There's an ease with the way he carries himself, even though there's a burning glint in his eyes that belies something churning under the surface. The way he carries himself is assured and strong, like a leader. I mean, he was the Knight Commander before he was exiled. So he clearly has leadership ability somewhere in there. As we make our way to the castle, I don't see a single person outside of their homes or buildings. Seems like everyone's taken the hint to get inside and hunker down. There's a large part of me that wants to do the same. The castle's outer walls come into view, and there's a distinct lack of guards patrolling. I thought we were supposed to meet inside. Is everything all right? Change of plans, all the nobility have been corralled into the east wing of the castle. Seemed like a good time to take my leave, as it were, and join the welcome committee. That is less than great news. I doubt we have much time then. Eric steps forward, his voice low and serious. Where are Maja and Livia? I'm almost convinced I'm imagining it, but there's a faint tremor in his voice. Swallows thickly. It's clear that he's trying hard to remain calm. I mean, they're the two people he cares for most in the world. So, of course, he's worried about them. They're safe. The Knight Commander has tasked herself with watching them Archmage. Lucian's mouth ticks up in the ghost of a smirk. She's clever, that girl. Bought them enough time to hide out in Maja's quarters to stay under the radar. Until it's time to meet us. That sends a ripple of relief through us, but it's only temporary. I have a sinking suspicion that we're about to face a lot of moving variables we won't be able to fully anticipate. As if on cue, a blur of white bounces into vision and Raiden steps into the middle of our conversation circle. Don't tell me you're having fun without me. I'd be devastated. Raiden is brimming with excitement, chest puffed more than usual to be standing with Adri. Adri gives me a polite smile before their face falls into an impenetrable mask. Quite the team you've assembled here. You have never in my lifetime did I think I'd see the guild working alongside knights, demons, and fae. I'm glad to see you live up to Raiden's non-stop tales. Raiden preens at this, grinning at me and ignoring the embarrassed heat that rises to my cheeks. Of course he tells stories. That's all he does. Well, not all he does. He's a chatterbox. A silence settles amongst us, and it takes me a moment to realize that they're waiting on me to speak. Right. I clear my throat before speaking, nerves and the weight of responsibility threatening to close it up. Well, first things first, we need to get inside. It isn't possible to smuggle in this many people by climbing up the walls. Raiden gives a small wriggle and slides up next to Lucian. That's why we've devised an ever-so-brilliant plan I believe you'll find most useful. I've never doubted Raiden, but I still feel a large amount of stress dissipate at his words. The Queen and King's erratic behavior has supplied us with a bit of an opportunity, you see. All non-essential personnel have been sent out of the castle. There's only a handful left in the kitchen, the Queen's lady in waiting. The only people really left are the guards now that the nobles have been sequestered. A pretty extensive tunnel network runs through the castle as well, for servants to move about quickly. It's essentially been abandoned, which provides us with an extremely convenient way in. We just have to have distractions ready for the exit points with stationed guards. Which is where I come in. I do love a good distraction. Their sharp teeth glint as they grin. Eric gives a small step forward and looks at me. All that leaves is a plan for us once we get inside. I stay silent for a moment, waiting for him to continue when I realize that it's me he's wanting to hear from. Yes, right. I do a slow spin around, looking at the various groups we have converged here. I take a deep breath. This isn't any different than a strategy meeting before a battle. It's obvious that there are a lot of us here. While that makes me happy to see, it's inconvenient in terms of movement. Smaller groups can move about much more easily, so we're going to need to split up. If we can get coverage over as much of the place as we can, we'll be in a much better spot. Groups of 2 or 3 should be enough, and it should be a mix of guild members and fae if possible. There's a little murmuring and lots of nodding heads. That's good. Maybe I'm not so out of my depth here. I look to Lucian. Do we know where the Queen and King are now? They nod, their face more serious now. They've closed themselves off in the chapel since dawn. Nazir was last spotted stationed at the door with a small group of guards. Nobody is allowed in or out. My throat goes dry at the mention of Nazir. It's been hard to shake my last encounter with him, but this time I won't be alone. The clock tower strikes a new hour. We don't have much time left. Okay, everyone. I know that what we're about to do isn't easy, but I can't stress enough how important it is that we succeed. We want as little bloodshed as possible, but prioritize the mission and your safety. Don't forget that the Queen and King are powerful in their own right. Adora can read your mind and speak to you that way, and Thaddeus can and will manipulate your emotions where he can. We don't know what it is exactly they're doing, but it needs to be stopped, no matter what they may tell you. I shake one of my hands out as I feel it begin to shake. Everyone's eyes are on me, but this isn't the moment to cower. Okay, I think we're as ready as we'll ever be. Everyone split up into groups. Eric, Raiden, and Adri, I'd like you to be with me. Raiden claps excitedly and goes to Adri's side. Rua and the Fae are going to establish a perimeter around the chapel. If my hunch is right, we'll need the extra coverage. We need another team to collect Maja and Livia and escort them to our rendezvous point. The assassins nod in agreement. Excellent. I turn to Eric. He smiles at me and I can't help but feel a little proud of myself. Did I miss anything? He hums softly before turning to the group. Don't forget, we have to make sure that Ehab gets to the chapel. That's our top priority. Eric looks back at me. That should do it, I think. This is it, then. Be safe, everyone. We'll see you on the other side. It's impressive to see how quickly everyone begins their designated tasks, splitting up quietly into groups and following Lucian. We make our way behind everyone. Eric matches my stride and puts a hand on my shoulder. You did well, Ehab. You're a natural leader. Being a warrior is one thing, but you also deeply care for people. That's important. For the briefest of moments, I feel an intense urge to cry at this specific praise coming from this specific man, but I hold myself together. Good idea. Not the time to be crying, at all. Barely. I managed to squeak out a thank you before I embarrassed myself too much. I can hear Raiden and Andrew chuckle behind me, the white-haired assassin sliding up to me and throwing his arm over my shoulders. You nearly had me in tears back there, you know? You get quite a penchant for speeches. I know I feel inspired and ready to go. I could fight a god and win. He narrowly misses a swipe from Eric, but isn't able to dodge the swift flick to the ear that Adric gives him. When he stands upright again, he's smiling so wide, I'm sure his cheeks must hurt. The levity is nice, but it doesn't last long. The closer we get to the chapel, the more my stomach churns. We really have no idea what we're about to walk into. We even may be too late, though that's the pessimistic side of my brain talking. I shake my head to clear my thoughts a bit, but the sinking feeling in my gut doesn't go away. The sword strapped to my hip grows heavier with each step. Slow your breathing, Knight. You're no use to us unconscious. Thank you, Adri. Right. Sorry. We continue on in silence as the groups ahead of us fork off into various corridors until it's just us. Our path leads us to the garden stairs, and when I put my hand on the door, I freeze. I look back, and in the dim light, I can see the other three looking at me, waiting for me to guide them. I shut the last of my nerves down and push forward. This shoots us down to a secluded corner of the garden, but what's striking to me is how quiet it is. Normally the garden is bustling with the sound of the fountains and idle gossip amongst nobles stirring tea, but now it's just eerie. This gives us less cover when it comes to noise. Raiden and Adri scout ahead of us, years of training making them light on their feet. Eric and I, on the other hand, we sound like a sleuth of bears. Eric has a quiet laugh. Maybe so, but we can fight just as hard as them too. He's got a point. Surprisingly, we find no obstacles on our way to the chapel. There's an itch in the back of my mind that this is more ominous than not, like it was expected that we would show up here. Keep an eye out for our other companions, and a sigh of relief escapes me when I hear the telltale chink of Livia's special armor. We turn the corner to find her standing next to Maja. They hold themselves with strength, and it gives me a surge of energy I didn't know I needed. It doesn't take long for Livia to spot us. Eric's eyes flicker between the two women, and a small amount of relief easing some of the tension in his face and his back standing a little straighter. As we near the chapel, a low, steady thrumming surrounds us. At first I mistook it for the sword at my hip and then my heartbeat, but the closer we get, the darker it feels. It's something deep and old, and it sends goosebumps across my skin. Livia strides up to the guards watching the door. Nazir isn't there and must have gone inside already. The guards straighten as Livia approaches, but stand firm, eyeing her warily. These are experienced men, and from the looks of it, we're anticipating her arrival. This area is restricted. We have explicit instructions not to let anybody pass. Well, as your knight commander, I'm ordering you to let us through. No can do, I'm afraid. Our orders trump yours. Comes from the queen herself. It seems like you've been demoted. Livia's hackles raise, and Eric's eyes flash with something dangerous. He surges ahead before I can stop him, and Macha's protest falls on deaf ears. You'd be wise to let us through, boy. In one swift, fluid motion, Eric slides his sword out of his sheath and swings it around. The guards take their own weapons in hand, but what I focus on is Livia, caught in the middle. It's rare to see her indecisive like this. These guards are her men, but they're standing in the way of the mission. One of the guards moves, but before Eric can reach them, he's knocked to the ground from Livia's fist. Eric then moves on the other guard, who drops his weapon just before Eric grabs a pommel of his sword into his gut to incapacitate him. With a shaky exhale, Livia nods and waits for the rest of us to catch up to her. You alright? I'll be better once we get this over with. I take that as my cue to push forward. I splay my hands on the stone of the chapel doors. There's a buzz that travels up my arms and settles at my mark. I can't tell if that's a good sign or a bad one. I push forward, opening the doors, holding my breath as I reveal the scene behind them. There were any number of possibilities as to what Adora and Thaddeus would be doing in here. A small part of me imagined something close to a scene from a children's tale, one about witches cackling over a boiling cauldron. Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble, fire, burning, cauldron, bubble! Instead, what I find is infinitely more disturbing. This is not the chapel I'm used to, but instead an illusion, one of Novus making from what I remember seeing in the crossroads. Everything is bathed in a sickly green glow, the ruins of a long-forgotten castle serving as a backdrop to where Adora and Thaddeus are perched in front of an altar, waiting for us. Well done, Sir Kadir. I must admit, you put on quite the production to get here. I'm almost impressed. Her words sting like cold steel, and I feel myself tense in anticipation of her voice entering my mind. Yet nothing comes. It's like we're not worth the effort to her. I mean, you're not. You're clearly opposed to her, so she's not going to try. She thinks she's won and is letting her hair down. It's terrifying, but if their overconfidence makes the queen and king sloppy, I'll take it as an advantage. True. Her piercing eyes rake over our group, lingering on the faces she recognizes, but finally settling to the sword on my hip. Fascinating. So the rumors about that little sword were true after all. She extends a hand and beckons with her long fingers. Give it to me. Take a step forward, willing my legs not to shake, and unsheath the sword. Behind me, Livia and Eric echo my steps, keeping us information. You know, that's awfully tempting. I swing the sword around a couple times, feigning confidence to match their own. But I'm afraid I can't do that. Dora's sharp features contort in rage, and she moves to stand, but Thaddeus settles her with a hand on her knee. My dear, now is not the time to treat our valued guest so poorly. Ehop has done so much to help protect the kingdom. It's impolite to give in to impulsivity. He turns his full attention to me, and I can feel the wave of warmth emanating from him. You see, we only want what is best for Arrentis. During our reign, we've done what we can to make changes and bring prosperity to our people, but we wanted to do more. Now we will, by welcoming in the dawn of a new age. And the key to unlocking a better world lies in your very hands. Don't you want to be a part of this? If you cooperate, you'll be granted power unlike anything you've known before. Eric bristles behind me and gives an impatient grunt. I watch Nazir's eyes flick towards him and then to Adria, his hand hovering over the hilt of his dagger. Okay, I've done these two, so let's try reasoning with them like we did with on the ambassador. I lower the sword. I don't want to fight with you. Queen and King's faces fall a bit in surprise. You don't realize that you're being played. What makes you think that Novus is going to actually concede any power to you? You're nothing more than pawns, easily discarded. Dora finally smacks Thaddeus' hand away and stands, her eyes burning with rage. What sort of fools do you take us for? It's laughable that you think if you can stride in here with your band of miscreants in tow and trick us into joining the losing side. We're very much playing the game, Ehab, but it's us who have control. The smile is now gone from Thaddeus' face, a dark glint in his eye, the only sign of anger. I can feel the energy of the room shift as he continues to try and control our emotions, this time with a nervous feeling that threatens to throw me off course. Eric and Livia step forward again, so they're in line with me. Having them close is a special kind of protection in itself. I draw strength from their presence. I don't think Novus would take too kindly to you claiming that you are in control. They gave you the powers you wield, and they could just as easily take it away. Very true. Then where would you be? Novus is powerful, but they've never been generous. Enough! I grow tired of your unending nonsense. This is your last warning. Hand over the sword, or we'll pry it from your lifeless hands. I square my shoulders and meet Adora's gaze. I'd like to see you try. Adora screeches in anger, and Thaddeus looks at me with something close to pure rage. What a pity. You could have been most useful to us. Take care of this, Nazir. We have more important things to attend to. Nazir wastes no time in drawing his weapon. On instinct, I prepare myself, but I freeze when I see Audrey glide past me. I've heard a lot about you, Spy Master. I've always wanted to see if your reputation precedes you. No, I know what happens. So just the energy, the dynamic, the motion. So good. I'm transfixed watching Antry spring into action. They're a blur, never pausing for longer than a second. I flinch at the harsh sound of their blades gliding. As much as I'd like to watch, I have to continue forward. Eric and Livia take the lead of moving toward Adora and Thaddeus. In the corner of my eye, I see Maja and Lucian setting a protective barrier at the door. Outside, I can hear the commotion of guards confronting those we have stationed outside. What concerns me is that Adora and Thaddeus don't look affected at all. Adora seems to get giddy from finally being able to be unrestrained with us, but they make no moves to protect themselves. What are they playing at? Adora steps forward, her sharp gaze turned now to Eric. I always had a feeling you'd be back to cause us more trouble ever since you managed to come back alive from that ghost village. Did you miss your precious little archmage? It feels like all their air gets sucked out of the room. Eric is stunned, eyes wide. Maja looks horrified, and Livia surges forward, her sword tip pointed at the queen. Explain yourself, now! A shrill, piercing laugh bubbles out of Adora's mouth. Oh, this is quite rich. Don't tell me that none of you pieced it together. The beat of silence between us is enough to send the queen into another laughing fit. Let me make this very clear. You were sent to that godforsaken ghost town on purpose, Nistrum, and you weren't supposed to return. An oversight on our part. But once we exiled you, we thought that would finally take care of you. Cut off from your world and everyone in it, and yet you remain the biggest thorn in our sides. Eric looks, flinches, but the grip on his sword doesn't falter. You have 3 seconds to admit that you're lying through your teeth. Jorah's eyes roll dramatically, and I'm shocked they don't stick that way. Please, to think that we were worried about you, little Livia. I'm a bit disappointed you never caught on, to be honest. Surely you cared enough about Nistrum to sense that something was off. And alas, you didn't. You just fell in line with everyone else that hated the disgraced knight commander who slaughtered his men. She sneers at Livia, whose eyes are blown wide, shining with tears. Her gaze flips over to Eric like she's expecting him to turn on her, but his anger is directed only at the queen and king. Yeah, he's not angry at Livia for believing that, for you know, doing what was expected of her. He knows who's to blame. It's not Livia. No more. Ruining one life is enough. I'm not going to let you destroy anyone else's. We swore our lives to you, our loyalty. You are both unfit to rule. So dramatic. I'm sure you'd love to have your due process to try and remove us, but you're too late. Our plan is in motion with no way to stop it. Novus will return, and whether you are alive or dead, to see it is of no consequence to us. She grins and steps back towards the altar, now spilling an otherworldly glow from the carved runes. Dora thrusts her arms in the air, Thaddeus standing and following suit. The chapel falls quiet, save for the sounds of Adria and Nazir and their deadly dance. They're well matched, with neither side able to fully get the upper hand on the other. Hear us, Novus! Everything has been prepared for your return. Deliver us from this corrupt and twisted world, and bring forth the dawn of a new age for Novus. With the royals distracted, this has to be the perfect moment to strike. Livia and Errant meet my eyes and nod, all of our training coming together as we seamlessly fall into formation, our weapons drawn. We're interrupted as the stone beneath our feet begins to rumble and shake, large cracks splicing the floor. There's a deafeningly loud roar, a flash of light, and then darkness. The air grows thick and viscous, and I gasp out. Feels like I'm suffocating. Then a flare of white-hot pain erupts from the sigil on my back, burning more than ever. There's an instant reaction to scream, but I'm frozen in place. Everything I faced before my training and my time in Novus has nothing on this, even the night of the winter ball. Novus is huge, far bigger than anyone else in the chapel. That now all-familiar sense of doom is cloying and inescapable. It's hard to breathe. I look over to my friends. Even Adria and Nazir have paused, and on all of our faces, there's nothing but fear. The sword in my hand almost stings from the way it thrums, the only thing really keeping me grounded and in my body at this moment. There's an itch in the back of my head that tells me we're probably too late. Novus stretches their arms out, a low rumbling sound emanating from their chests. They're reveling in their physical form, feeling their skin, their face, their chests. Adora and Thaddeus collapse and genuflect before the god. Well, well, you've succeeded. It seems my little pets are loyal after all. I can feel the strength surging inside of me, growing with each second. They scan the room before focusing on me. My sigil burns, but I hold myself steady and straighten my shoulders. The little knight. Look how important you've become. You never were a mere pawn on the board, were you? Novus pointedly looks at the sword in my hands. You've even brought that sword to me. I knew you were clever. We may be too late, but we can still make their lives harder for whatever time we have left. They look at me now. Novus reaches forward and I leap backward, catching myself before I trip on a crack in the floor. Pain is still surging through me, my legs unable to catch a stable breath, but I hold fast to the sword and spit out the only words my lips will form. Let's do it. Let's be completely irreverent. Get fucked. There's a sick growling noise I belatedly realize is Novus' laughter. Ah, you're a spiteful thing, little knight. Tell me something. Didn't your training teach you how to recognize when a battle's been lost before it's begun? Give me the sword. There's an overwhelming and dense pressure then, and combined with the pain from my sigil, it's too much for me. My legs shake before I fall harshly to my knees. Novus begins to move closer to me, their face split in an unnaturally large grin. My body shakes with the effort to even hold the sword close to me. I can't let them get it, even if it kills me. Shit! Novus is going to kill me. The shadow cast from Nova falls over me, and I fight every urge to close my eyes. I won't cower and look away. But instead of my life flashing before my eyes, I see a flash of golden hair and metal armor step between me and the god. I believe Ehab told you to fuck off. For a brief moment, everything comes to a screeching halt as Novus refocuses on Eric. The flare of recognition glints in their eyes. They release an otherworldly, piercing roar and swing around and lunge towards us. It's almost too fast to see, but Eric barrels into my side, knocking us both from the swiped hand that narrowly misses us both. There's a flurry of blue and purple as Masha and Lucian hurry towards us. Masha's magic begins to flow, her mouth frantically melting spells. Armor glows with protection, and Lucian begins magically hurling broken chunks of stone to distract Novus. I meet Raiden's gaze from across the chapel and point towards Adora and Thaddeus, who are trying to make a quick escape. Raiden needs no further instruction. A giddy grin flashing across his face as I run to meet up with him, Rue at my side. The disgraced royals are crawling towards a small hole in the wall. Raiden steps directly in front of it, snickering when the two look up at him in fear. Thaddeus makes a weak move for the sword strapped at his hip, but he cries out softly when Raiden steps on his hand. I squat down to get as close to eye level as I can with them, waving the tip of my sword idly. Thaddeus' eyes track it, and he swallows thickly. Dora looks pale, her eyes darting frantically between the sword, Novus, and the hole. You can't wriggle away this time, Adora. I see eyes find mine, and I feel one last attempt to breach my mind, sharp and biting. It ends quickly, though. The fight begins to leave her as she realizes there's nowhere to run. You have a lot of explaining to do in a small amount of time. I suggest you start. Lucy, you have a lot of explaining to do. Quickly. She takes a slow, shutting breath, squeezes her eyes shut, and begins. There are many forms of power, Ehab. You can be political, physical, you can build the largest army or a grand naval force on the water. But there are some forms of power that are as ancient as the gods themselves. The Nistrums are as old as Errantis and have always played integral parts in its long history. Many nobles that litter the castle claim to have a bloodline that goes back to the ancient kings, but they're lying. She gives a mirthless laugh. For all our faults, we never claimed something as grand as that. Raiden snorts and flips his dagger in his hand. Sure, you just made a deal with the most evil being imaginable and tried to end the world. Dora pointedly ignores him, turning her head to watch Eric as he and Livia evade the various lunges and attacks from the god. That man is a wild card, and a dangerous one at that. We knew he would never challenge us for his birthright, but clearly exile wasn't enough to stop it from meddling. That's a lot to unpack, but we'll never be able to dissect it if we aren't able to stop Novus. I tip the edge of my sword so that it presses against the translucently pale skin of her throat. How does any of that tie into what you've done here? Dora stares at me for a moment, incredulous, before rolling her eyes and swatting away the sword. Unbelievable! You truly don't get it, do you? We don't want that bloody piece of metal for nothing. I know you can feel the power it has, but it won't do much more for you than any other sword laying around. Dora's words form in my brain as she speaks. It's the wielder that's important. The sword in the right hands is capable of greatness or ruin. That's why we need a Nistrum to be done away with. All at once it clicks. I stand back up, the sword hanging limply at my side. Adora looks amused, chuckling to herself as she watches me put the pieces together. Raiden watches me, brows drawn in concern. This has never been about me. All the events of the last few months, even Kenydros choosing me, has been to further the trajectory of someone saving Novus. But that person isn't me. It's Eric. It always has been. The writing was written so clearly on the wall that I want to slam my head right into it. Novus needs this sword to finally unlock the depths of their power. It's why they haven't blown us to smithereens already. In Eric's hands, however, he could have the power to stop Novus in their tracks. Their plan gets foiled. I'm snapped out of my reverie by a loud metallic crash, and I look to see Livia slammed into a stone wall, gasping as the wind is knocked out of her. Eric freezes, torn between going to her and continuing to fend off Novus. Masha waves him out, running to Livia, and Eric continues. Huzzah, huzzah! I need to get to him. Now. You've got these two handled? Please. Don't worry about us. Thaddeus lets out a soft whine and Adora bristles. It'd be a lot easier if you just killed us now. Raiden purses his lips and hums, face falling when he catches my glare. The last thing I'm going to do is let you avoid the justice that's coming your way. Typical knight. Thaddeus merely nods. We've got this handled. Go. Pressing myself as tightly as I can to the wall, I slink as quickly as possible around the perimeter until I'm next to Eric. There's debris raining down from the damage done to the chapel, on top of the errant chunks of stone being hurled from both Lucian and Novus. Once Masha gets Livia back on her feet, she returns to helping Lucian. Blue magic. Almost said black. Blue magic swirls as she catches larger pieces of stone and putting them down gently. Adria and Nazir have slowed down, but show no signs of letting up. They look a little battered. Nazir has a slight limp, and Adria has a scrape along their arm and their cheek. I can see Raiden watching them closely, gnawing on his bottom lip. As I draw closer to Eric, I speed up my steps and may get to him just in time. Novus managed to land a blow against him, knocking the sword from his hand. He doesn't seem hurt, but winded, and he manages to make it up to his feet just as a large piece of stone blows into Novus, sending the god stumbling back. My shin guards scrape against the floor loudly as I slide in next to Eric, the pommel of my sword pointed towards him. He blinks, frowning at the sword and lightly pushing my hand away from him. What are you doing? Don't leave yourself unarmed. You need this. I shake my head quickly. I don't, but you do. There's not a lot of time to explain. But you are the one that needs to wield this sword, not me. It's never been about me. I think that's actually kind of a cool... It's an interesting tack to take in a story like this. To have the person that needs to save the day not be the main character. Because that's usually the case in stories like this. If this is an actual game you're playing, not just a book that you're reading. The main character usually is the one that saves the day somehow. I mean, that happened in When the Night Comes. The hunter was the main character. The hunter is the one who ultimately faced down the antagonist. The person who is ultimately responsible for the whole mess. I'm not going to spoil it just in case people haven't played When the Night Comes. Go play it. It's the same people who wrote this. I actually have 2 playthroughs of that on my YouTube channel. One from before they revamped it, and one from after they revamped it, when they added voice acting and animated sprites, basically. So, yes, that's just as good in its own way as this. And they also have a 3rd game coming that should be released sometime this year. But anyway, yeah, that's what I like about this, is that it's not the main character who's supposed to save the day. It's someone else entirely. You can help. In fact, obviously you're a key to helping them, but they're not the ones who save the day. And I need to take care of something real quick. I'll be right back. I'd hoped I could last until I finished the finale, but bio break. But it should be good for the rest, and we're almost done anyway. I give a short, frustrated exhale. Eric, take the damn sword and don't question me. One of his hands reaches out, fingers twitching as he pauses just before grabbing the hilt. But he curls his long fingers around it and releases a cheeky breath out. He stands and gives the sword a few swings, and it looks like an extension of his arm. His light in his hand, slicing silently through the air. Eric gives a curt nod of approval, his eyes sparkling despite the circumstances. I'm a little jealous that it didn't feel like that to me, but now isn't the time for sword envy. The knight would feel that way. I love it. And yes, I didn't take time to admire the Eric and Livia CG. But here we go. Let's just enjoy looking at that. Fine side by side, I love it. Did it buzz like this for you? Laugh bubbles out of me. Yep. We need to get you a weapon. I can handle myself. Another stone crashes into the wall next to us. But some cover would be nice. We scurry over to where Eric dropped his sword, which is unfortunately directly in front of Novus. Quickly scoop up the sword, but realize the situation I've put us in. There's no place to really hide in the chapel, and although Masha and Lucian were keeping the god preoccupied, they notice us running towards them. A deafening noise bellows out of them, making all of us cry out and move to cover our ears. It almost sounds like desperate rage, and maybe even fear, because now Eric has the sword. Livia struggles to flank us, and Lucian steps in front of Masha protectively. Audrey leans against the wall, looking weary, but Nazir is at their feet. The noise dims, and Novus begins to move toward us, and for a brief moment there's an eerie silence. Then there's a sickening slick sound, followed by a light gasp. No! My head whips back to look at Audrey. There's an odd look of surprise on their face. They look down, my eyes following their path down to the shiny metal tip of a dagger peeking out of their chest. Audrey's shirt begins to bloom a dark crimson red. Nazir grasps them by the waist, blood pooling out of his mouth, his breathing ragged. Audrey looks around the room, searching for someone, before sighing softly when they find Raiden. The corner of their scarred mouth ticks up, a greedy laugh puffing out of them, before they collapse to the floor with Nazir. There's a beat, maybe two, of frozen silence before time comes crashing back into us, everybody moving all at once. Guards begin to pour in, followed by Fae and guild members. Lucian rushes to meet Raiden as he kneels over Audrey's body, using their magic to fend off any guards or debris that might hurt him. In the corner, I see Adora and Thaddeus begin to start crawling towards the makeshift exit again, but I breathe a sigh of relief when Ruth seemingly materializes next to them, holding them off. I feel a tap on my back and turn to see Livia gently nudge me forward. We fall into a natural position, Eric leading us, with Livia and I flanking. Eric moves with deft steps, but is an immovable force as he strikes down anyone who tries to stop him on his path towards Novus. Livia and I take down the errant guard that charges at us. My eyes sting with sweat, my hands a ruddy mixture of dirt and blood from the various scrapes I've acquired. If I'm able to make it out of here alive, I'll be grateful for the chance to laugh at my face in a mirror. Novus waits for us at the apex of the chapel. They're grinning menacingly and watch as we make our way. It's a silent sort of taunt, watching us like ants, insignificant little pests. It makes something inside me flare with rage. Somehow, the god looks larger than when they first emerged, and the closer we get, the more that dense, cloying feeling of despair gets. My knees feel weak, and I'm almost lightheaded, and looking at Livia, I can see she's fearing the same. Eric, though, trudges forward like normal. Of course he does. He looks back at us, not saying anything, a soft smile on his face as he looks at Livia. We're too well trained to know that this is something Eric is going to have to face off Novus alone. We don't have magically imbued swords activated by bloodlines, but what we can do is make sure Eric has the best possible shot at defeating Novus. Livia gives a small sniffle next to me, and I bump her with my shoulder. He's got this. We're going to make sure he wins. She nods. He will win. That's the spirit. We both flinch as Novus releases another shrieking sound, surging forward to attack Eric. They've gotten faster, stronger, but Eric is able to dodge at the last moment. My feet want to stay in place, my eyes transfixed on the scene before me, but staying here will do nothing to help Eric. We set out to get the others. Rue's closest to us. They've done a handy job of binding the queen and king up with thick, sturdy vines, unable to escape. Bravo, Rue, bravo! We collect Masha next, muttering protection spells non-stop as Novus continues to break through them every minute or so. Lucian comes to meet us, guiding a dazed-looking Raiden. His eyes are unfocused, red and shiny with tears. Lucian tenderly brushes his white hair off of his face. All the roguish charm seems to have left him. All of us glance over to Eric every so often, the worry and stress nearly suffocating. We need a plan. If we have any hope to finish this thing, it's now or never. A lot has happened, and we may not make it out. If you want to leave, now's your chance. It's not a judgment, but a genuine offer. My friends have suffered enough, and it looks like we're barely hanging on as is. This seems to shift something, though. The sound of silence is answer enough. We're in this together. How are you doing, Masha? Your strategy of throwing stones earlier was very effective, but we don't want you collapsing on us. It's undeniable that she's exhausted. Her face is stained with dirt, sweat, and tears. The fact that she's still standing amazes me. I've still got some fight left in me, but Novus is growing stronger. I could feel them begin to fight my magic. If you and Lucian work together on that, do you think that would help? Combining your powers certainly might help with fatigue while making your magic stronger. The two of them don't hesitate and murmur soft affirmatives. Anything you need, I shall do gladly. What about distractions? Rue perks up a bit at this. Yes, Rue and Raiden, you two are the quickest and most adept out of the rest of us. You have a far better chance of dodging attacks than those of us slowed down by armor. Are there any weak points you've noticed? Their feet. The ground is uneven. The feet aren't steady if you watch closely. Don't forget the back of their knees. Those two. Then your goal will be to topple them over. Rue slides up to Raiden, Lucian passing him off with care. Raiden leans against the Fae, who knocks her curly head against his fondly. Ready to go? The assassin takes one long breath and nods, his eyes steely and his voice gruff. More than ready. That fucker's going to get what's coming to them, God or not. If we're able to take Novus down, that'll make Eric's job a lot easier. Livy and I will help on the ground where we can. Any damage we can put on them is good. Silence falls as the plan sinks in between us. With a final mutter of affirmatives, we split into our dedicated pairs. Raiden and Rue zoom off, and Masha and Lucian position themselves on opposite sides of Novus, debris already beginning to soar through the air. What Masha said before was true. Novus is getting stronger. They're able to deflect the first few rounds of attacks. Eric seems to be unaffected, deftly moving from place to place to attack any area he might consider weak. Another roar, and Novus twists and swipes at their feet. There's a flurry of green, red, and white as Raiden and Rue flit about, clearly having hit their mark. Raiden leaps up their leg, his dagger dragging across the back of their knee and shining bright with blood. Unfortunately, though, this doesn't seem to cripple him, even as Rue does the same to the opposite leg. Livy and I keep a safe perimeter around Eric, striking blows where we can when Novus swings their arms, or if we have a chance, we go for their trunk when they get close to the ground. It feels like progress is moving slow like molasses. It's hard to tell whether or not we've been here for seconds or hours. A large stone knocks them in the shoulder, throwing them off balance, and they sway dangerously. Raiden takes this opportunity to cut their leg at the back of their heel, and this time his aim strikes true. Novus roars in pain, sinking to their knees with a tremendous thud. Their blood begins to pool around them on the floor. Eric sees the moment and takes it. He gets as close as possible to the god, but Novus' head and heart are still too far for him to reach. Another surge of pain emanates from his sigil, as I instinctively twist to try and soothe it, I notice a large part of the stone floor that juts up. He points towards Novus, and with a good jump that should give Eric the leverage he needs to finish this once and for all. I grip my teeth and sprint, my hand reaching out of its own accord, energy flowing from my sigil down my arm. I call out to him and he turns, meeting my eyes. I reach him within a few more strides, and when I get close enough, he catches my hand. A gasp escapes me as a massive surge of power rushes out of me, from my shoulder, to my hand, to Eric's. I've grown so used to having a piece of nitrous power inside of me, that feeling it flee my veins so quickly makes me grow woozy. I ground myself and try to stay strong. Eric grunts, clearly adjusting to the feeling of new power, but soon enough he's standing straighter. I feel the final tingles of my sigil fade, and I know that it's now gone. Take them down. Eric steps away to finish this, and my knees give out from under me. Time seems to slow as I watch Masha and Lucian haul the biggest stone yet to Novus' back in an attempt to keep them from rising up again. Raiden and Rue continue their assault on their legs, moving forward to assist the two. Finally, Eric begins to run up the ramp, launching himself from the edge, holding the sword high above with a loud cry. My heartbeat is the only thing I can hear as the sword sinks deep into Novus's heart, inky black blood immediately flying out and down their chests as Eric holds fast to the pommel. It starts to glow a bright white color, and Novus's veins begin to illuminate from it, the wound at the epicenter. Novus's skin lights up as the veins cover every inch of them, black blood dripping from their wound and blocking out the veins on their chest. They try to claw at it, but it's clear they're fading fast. A final earth-shattering screech is released from the god as I sink further into the ground, and the stone beneath my feet shudders. For a moment, I worry that the ruins will crumble and crush us, but Novus collapses, their pained cry dying in their throat. Eric keeps his grip on the sword as long as possible, wrenching it out and jumping away from the god at the last moment. The ground rumbles beneath us like an earthquake, and the world around us shifts. We're in our familiar chapel once more. Eerily, it almost feels as if nothing ever happened. It's painfully quiet as we situate ourselves, wiping off the dust and blood that saturates our skin and clothing. The sound of clanging metal interrupts us as the guards drop their weapons and surrender, swiftly followed by an agonizing, defeated wail from Adora. It hits me that it's finally over. Despite all the odds, we won. Suddenly the ceiling comes into view and I realize that my legs are no longer supporting my body. I close my eyes and brace for impact, but it doesn't come. When I crack open one of my eyes, I see a concerned Maddox looking down at me. He wordlessly offers me a hand and tugs me upright, but before I can pull away, I yank him close for a bone-crushing hug. He's frozen for a moment before he melts enough into it to bump his forehead against my pauldron. You made it. Fuck, I was so worried. He pries himself from my hold and steps back, grinning sheepishly. I can handle myself, you know. Clearly. Before I can admonish and applaud him for being cheeky, Livia's voice cuts me off. She stands in front of the guards as they're corralled up by various masked guild members. Despite everything we've just been through, she stands tall, ever the picture of a true commander. You will be escorted to the barracks and be dealt with there. Due process will be given to all, but know that if you run, we will find you, and you will forfeit that right. They say nothing and silently stream out of the chapel. Lucian watches over Adora and Thaddeus with a wicked grin on their faces as they bind their hands together. Neither of them struggle, but the anger is clear on their faces. The assassin from earlier staggers in, but I watch her face crumple as she spots Adri's body in the rubble. Raiden goes to her, and they murmur quietly to each other before gathering the rest of the guild members. Ruth sprints over to the entrance of the chapel where Eleanor stands. She looks relieved, and Ruth throws her arms around her, burying their nose into her hair. So yeah, Ruth cares about mortals, so that's nothing new. But this is proof, but it's clear that they still care about Eleanor. That's why it hurts them so much that they and Eleanor were drifting apart. They stay like that for a long moment. Eleanor brushes Rue's short hair back and mutters something to them that makes them grin. Maja is with Eric uses a scrap of fabric from her skirt to clean some of the blood off of Eric's face. I hear a small noise of something hitting metal, and it takes me a moment before it hits me that I'm crying, tears falling onto my armor. I hastily wipe my cheeks, surely spreading more dirt and blood than anything, but I know that these aren't tears of sorrow, they're of hope. It'd be foolish to think that the work ends here. Novus needs time to heal, and there's an unfathomable amount of work to be done to clean up the mess that's been made. Adora, Thaddeus, and the guards will need to be handled, and we have no way of knowing how the public will react to the truth. New rulers will be needed, and the guards must be filled with new recruits. Loyal ones who will pledge to serve Novus above all else, and maybe with a little bit of extra vetting. I morbidly realize that the guild will need a new leader, too, a difficult role to fill with how incredible Adri's presence and expertise was. Basically, Novus is going to go through one hell of a change, and it will need to be handled with a great deal of care. I look upward out of one of the windows, and the sky no longer gray, but clear and bright. Excuse me. I could return to my life in Vithris, but the thought of it makes my heart ache. I built a life for myself here, with people I love and care for. More than anything, I feel excited. It's rare enough to live in a time of rebirth and change, but to actively take part in it is something else altogether. The future is uncertain, but there are some things I know for sure. Novus didn't win, and the people of Novus are safe. The sun will rise again tomorrow, and we'll mourn our losses. But I'm alive, and live to speak about what happened here. There's an odd sort of emptiness now that Kanidra's power has left me, but I know that they're still watching over Novus and the people within it. But above everything else, I can still hold my friends close. They're alive, and we can face all the trials of the future together. Ta-da! In the aftermath of Novus' defeat, word of the battle and those who fought in it spread quickly throughout Errantus and its neighboring countries. A new ruler was needed to restore what had been taken from the citizens of Novus. The choice was unanimous among the members of the court to formally end the exile of Errant Kingdom and instate him as king of Errantus. Under his rule, alongside his queen and archmage Maja, the kingdom flourishes in a way it has not since Eric's own ancestors sat on the throne. And though the pair rule side by side, their most trusted advisor and knight holds their hearts and remains by their side. Yay! Relations with the Fae are more formally established, and the citizens of Errantus find themselves living in an era of great prosperity and peace. He also still attends a winter ball every year at the request of the duchesses. Upon seeing the success with which the Fae and humans worked together during the defeat of Novus, Rue works with Eric to ensure a harmonious coexistence between the cultures. They start by reconciling with their sister, Lady Silverleaf, showing her what humanity looks like through their eyes. The two still clash, as siblings do, but sightings of the elusive Lady Eleanor are reported more and more by the citizens of Novus. She's been known to be partial towards passing sweets to children and sharing mulled wine at booths in the market. Rue becomes essential to bridging the gap between humans and Fae in Novus, becoming a unique sort of ambassador. It keeps them busy, but they continue to see their friends often. There's always a spot for them at the castle. In the underbelly of Novus, there is also a period of rapid change, as above, so below. When one viper falls, another rises, sharper and keener with the collective knowledge of their predecessors. There are hushed whispers underground that the moniker has changed hands, though it is only confirmed in a secret guild ceremony held under the cover of darkness. The viper undoubtedly feared not only for their powers and their prowess and reach, but for the fierce loyalty garnered by the members of the guild. It becomes a sort of safe haven for those that were lost and broken. Bonds are forged beneath Novus without the fetters of contracts or blood debts. If there are rumors that the guild is given grace by those ruling Novus, they go unchallenged. Besides, Raiden was never one for tradition anyway. Livia keeps her duty to the crown and people of Novus to keep stability as the world reorients on its axes. When the new everything has settled, she steps down as Knight Commander to focus on something she hasn't had much time for previously. Herself. Caught up in the frenzy left after Eric's exile, Livia stepped into shoes expected of her to fill. Always known as Eric's protégé, she now makes it an opportunity for herself to try something new. Unbound by titles, Livia begins a new chapter of her life, exploring the world and herself along with it. But she isn't alone. Having met during the defeat of Novus, Livia and the mysterious raven, Layla, connected instantly. With Layla's guild contract now complete, she has a newfound freedom that she's unsure of what to do with. She's decided, though, that a beautiful woman with a sharp sword is a good place to start. I mean, fair. After demons reach a certain age, time passes and holds meaning differently than it does for mortals. Years go by like mere seconds, and the rise and fall of empires begins to bleed together. Lucian recognizes when it's time to move on, a gut feeling of sorts, a push and pull that guides them on their next adventure. But the people they left in Novus keep a special place in their heart, enough so that there's never too much time that passes between visits. There's a wisdom to be given, especially to new and younger generations, and mystique builds around the intriguing visitor. Through the ages, a folktale emerges. A demon, beautiful like the night sky, once lived in Novus and befriended the mortals. They returned every so often to visit them, and when their times would come for them to return to the earth, Lucian could sometimes be found sitting by their graves in the light of a crescent moon. As a reward for his valiant service in protecting the Vithrian ambassador and aiding the defeat of Novus, Cedric is made head of the King's Guard and serves under the banner of Novus. Cedric leads his battalion and takes great pride in maintaining the security of the castle and those within it. Maddox is also finally given the opportunity to enlist as a proper knight, and he quickly stakes his claim as the most talented recruit since Livia's training days. Despite being busy with drills and practice and patrol, he finds the time to sneak away with Cedric on quiet nights. Adora and Thaddeus sit in the dungeons beneath the castle as they watch their work become unmade by the new king and his new court. When the smoke clears and the emergent matters have been attended to, the disgraced rulers face their reckoning. Their betrayal of Errant must be answered for. The judgment is given without ceremony by King Eric, and the punishment follows suit. There's no crowd, no announcement. The king's sword is swift and sharp, and their final breaths end the reign of the traitor queen and king. Their legacy is one of betrayal and destruction, a warning to those who rule or seek power for generations to come. The throne room looks so different, even if not much has physically changed. It's the energy within it. Before it was cold and harsh, but now with the light streaming in through the windows, I feel nothing but warmth and safety. I approach the two seated on the throne and salute them.
Yeah, so pretty. Oh my goodness. Ah, love it.
Also, notice they're holding hands. Your Majesties, they look at me with what could only be fondness. I was told that this was an ever so important debrief. Care to explain? Of course. Everyone has been so busy that some of your knights are starting to feel neglected. We can't have that. It's bad for morale. And what do you suggest we do to solve this most pressing issue? A kiss if it pleases your Majesties. It does. It's hard work rebuilding a kingdom from the ground up, but these little stolen moments are everything to me. I'm honored to serve at their side. They've done so well, and Novus flourishes under their rule. Come here, Ehab. How could I ever disobey my king? Ta-da! Okay, so I pointed out their hands because there is a similar. Here's Adora and Thaddeus, and you notice they're not holding hands. So that was the detail that I picked up on the first time I saw that CG. So I don't know, it's just an interesting detail. I'm not saying that Adora and Thaddeus don't like each other, but it says something about their relationship, I guess, that they don't hold hands while they're sitting on the thrones together. So, anyway, that's the night route done. So, Nomad this weekend, I don't know if it'll be Friday or Saturday, but I will post on Twitter. This will go up on YouTube, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Yeah, so once I finish Errant Kingdom, I am planning to go through some of the codex entries after I do the nomad route finale, and then once I've done that, then I will start plowing through the Derek DLC for Our Life, Beginnings, and Always, because I really want to get back to that, but I just other things happened. So thank you all for joining me and for watching, and take care. Bye.